was all yellow. And it was all yellow.
Hey there, how you doing? My name's Stephen Hart. I'm an actor and I'm from London. But that's not where my story really starts. So let me take you back to the very beginning in the hope that telling you about my life and the things that have happened to me, that it might help someone here with something they're going through, or give you a better insight and understanding when you meet somebody that's different or that's going through a situation that you don't know about or don't understand, and to help you realise that no matter what, there's always a person there first. Hey everyone, welcome back to Hart Talks. Well, those lines were the opening lines from my one-man show Shadow Dreamer, and that's what we're talking about today because it's the 6th anniversary since the show closed off Broadway. And I cannot believe that it's been 6 years and you still ask so many questions about it that I thought I'd do a little rundown of the show and hopefully make it so that you can ask questions about the topics. So basically it started off with adoption. My birth mother was white. She had an affair with somebody who wasn't white and I was given up for adoption. Then my adopted family adopted me. They were not bad people. They were just messed up. My adopted mum had psychiatric problems. She had had mental illness from a young age. My adopted dad was just a very weak man, and things were crazy in the house. You know, I remember a lot of really odd things happening when I was a child. But when I was 3 years old, my adopted mum left. My adopted dad met a woman and she moved in. This woman was an alcoholic. She was also very physically abusive. She had 2 children of her own and they all moved in, and the beatings start, and she would beat me within an inch of my life. She would beat me in nighttime, daytime, it didn't matter when. She would also beat them, and she would drag us and kick us and punch us and, you know, do things to us that were just like one of those books you read that you're scared to turn over the next page. That's how I felt about my life for all those years. Something else was sexual abuse. I was being raped by my uncle from the age of 3 to the age of 7. Now, nobody ever stopped it. Nobody ever thought it was strange that he was always in my bed, that he was always cuddling me. Nobody noticed it, and it went on. And he always warned me never to tell anybody. By the time I was 10, I knew the beatings or the sexual abuse was going to kill me, so I had to get out. And my adopted mum had got herself sorted. Her mental state was a lot better and she'd moved to Scotland, so I went to live with her. And for a couple of years she gave me a good home. She tried and things were okay. But as I got older and I started having my own opinions, I think my adopted mum found it hard and her mental health started to suffer again and things started to fall apart. When I was 15 and a half, the adoption came up and it just flared up into a huge argument and she kicked me out. I learnt what homelessness was. I lived on the streets for a couple of months and it was awful. It was so scary. I was such a child. I was a baby, you know. I was 15 and a half and I was living in the cold, in the wet. I was scared. I just didn't know where my next food was coming from, where was safe, where wasn't. It was a really, really tough time. Then I got picked up by child services and they put me in a young person's hostel. And I remember lying in bed in this hostel one night and thinking to myself, Stephen, what was the worst part of your life? Was it the sexual abuse? Was it the beatings? Was it when your adopted mum broke down? What was it? And then I thought, is it this? And being in that hostel was awful. The things I saw, the things that went on, just shouldn't be seen by anybody, and especially somebody at risk, somebody that needs help. It's not a good place. When I was 16 years old, I got my first flat. I then went on to train in nursing. Then I dropped all that and trained to be an actor. Then I went and searched for my real family. I found my aunt and uncle, some cousins and a brother. They were all amazing. Then I found my birth mother. wasn't as good. She was not interested, and she made it blatantly obvious that she wasn't. Eventually, her disapproval of the situation meant that my relationship with my aunt and uncle and family fell apart. Within this time, something that I forgot to say was that I'd realised I was gay, and it was awful for me because I didn't want that. I thought, I'm going to have a hard life. I don't want this. It's not, people aren't going to approve. What are people going to think? But it was me. And lo and behold, I moved to London and fell in love. Met a great guy and got a great job in the West End. Was really happy and still had that filing cabinet in my head of all the horrible, horrific things that I'd grown up with, the things I'd seen. But I kept them locked away, and I thought that that would be okay. But they started to seep out, and my partner wanted to know about my background, know about my family, know about my life, and I couldn't tell him. And gradually the relationship fell apart. Then my job ended, and a few weeks later I went out with a friend for a drink, and he left. Somebody in the bar spiked my drink, and I was raped. How do you tell your friends at 30 years old that you were raped? That you weren't able to fight off the person that did this? That you couldn't stop them? And these are the things that I kept thinking, kept blaming myself for. I didn't tell anyone. The doctors at the hospital knew, the police knew, and that was it. A couple of months later, something else happened that meant that I had to tell them, and eventually everybody got to know. Now, I went on with my life, went to New York in 2008 and started working with some amazing kids from East New York. Worked with some kids from London as well, and we put on a show off Broadway. Now, these kids were being pushed to tell their story, and I was pushing them. And I realised that when I saw them tell their story that I had to do the same. So I came back to London, wrote my one-man show Shadow Dreamer, and took it to New York. I knew somebody in New York who said that I could present it at the college he worked at, and they decided to sponsor me and let me have a space to use to put Shadow Dreamer on. Shadow Dreamer then went wild. It kicked off and everybody wanted to see it. It just started this mass of communication, emails, people talking to me, people telling me their stories. It was crazy. I was up till 2, 3, 4 o'clock every morning answering emails and getting ready for the next show, and it was a buzz, and it was amazing, and it was scary, and it was fun, and it was happy. It was everything. It was all those things, but it was just unbelievable what telling your story could do. My show eventually came to an end on this day in New York, off Broadway, and it was just such a fitting way to end Shadow Dreamer. Some of you were there, some of you saw it, and these are the topics that came up. There was homelessness, there was mental illness, there was drink, there was drugs, there was sexual abuse, there was rape, there was homelessness, there was all these things. And these are the things that are there on the table for you to talk about, for you to ask me about. These are the subjects that we don't talk about, the ones that we lock up in that filing cabinet inside our head. I want to hopefully help by bringing these subjects out to the front and making them more public. So yeah, share this video with somebody. Maybe it's somebody that needs to be able to talk about one of these subjects, and they could drop me a line and give them an opportunity to talk about something that's maybe locked in one of those filing cabinets. Okay, that's it for this week. Thank you. Remember to like, share, subscribe, comment. Take care.